Hey, what's going on, everyone? Welcome to the show. I'm your host, The Unhinged Father. This is the Unhinged Father podcast. Hope everyone's having a fantastic week so far. Apologies for missing last week. We've been really going through it, which I feel like I'm saying every other week or so. Sleep training, illness, temper tantrums, fucking everything. So again, apologies for missing last week to all three of you that listen. Let's go ahead and jump into the episode this week. So I've been really kind of digging deep for some of the content on this. And one of the reasons why I've missed last week's podcast was that I was trying to figure out what I'm going to put on here. And I go in, I start recording the podcast, start writing shit down, trying to figure out what it is. And for those of you who don't know, the way I do this podcast is I really just spitball. I come up with some sort of topic, what I want to talk about, maybe just like journal through that, write a little outline, and then that's what I go off of right there. But I have to be passionate about whatever it is that I'm going to be talking about in order for the podcast to really seem authentic, for it to be, the best that I could possibly make it. And if I'm going to be spending the time to actually do the podcast, I want to make sure that it is good for the people that do listen, for myself, that I'm actually getting what I'm thinking out into the open, trying to make it a reality through this podcast. That being said, the thing that has come in this week and seems to be sticking the most will be the topic of failure, making mistakes. If you've listened long enough, or if you know me personally, you'll know there's one thing. Despite this flawless fucking mustache, great looks, rugged, handsome, smart, athletic, just the peak of masculinity, I'm not perfect. Even though I'm all of those things, I'm definitely not perfect. I make a ton of fucking mistakes. If you want proof of that, just fucking ask my wife. She will tell you how many mistakes that I make. I'm not perfect. No, none of my ideas are perfect. Nothing about me is perfect at all. And that's okay. Mistakes and failure are how we learn and how we progress as a person, as a society in reality. And I can look back at my life and think about the things that I've done, the mistakes that I've made, my failures, and if I'm in the right headspace, or if I'm able to reflect on it and get out of a negative mindset to where I'm just looking at the failure, as a mistake, as something that is bad. When I'm able to reflect and look at it as a learning point or a way to get better, those are typically the times that I make the biggest changes within my life that are the most beneficial. And I think this is something that we struggle with as a society. It's not just me, or at least I don't think that it's just me. I think that a lot of people struggle with failure, perfectionism, making mistakes. All of these things are constantly hovering above us. And I can think back to one of my coaches, and actually a lot of my coaches that I had when I was younger, when I wrestled, played football. Like I said, manly, super athletic, all of those things, that's me. But my coaches would talk about how you not only need how to learn how to win, but you need to learn how to lose. And I think that's super important in today's day and age. I don't think that people are learning how to lose. And it's very difficult. I'm going to empathize with those people that don't handle mistakes or failures very well. First of all, it's hard to handle a mistake or failure. It fucking sucks. Believe me, I get it. I hate making mistakes. I hate failing. I have a personality where I think that I should be strong enough to do anything. And that's not always the case. It's really hard to wrap my head around that, but it is. It's not always the case. I'm someone who's had to learn how to lose. And when you think about today's society and social media culture, where we're at, perfectionism as at, I would think, all-time high. Now, I've only been on this earth for a short 36 years so far, 36 and a half years, if we're going to get technical about it. But I can't remember a time where everyone was just presenting this perfect image constantly. And I'm sure, no one wants their family to look like a piece of shit or them to look like a piece of shit. You're always going to try and present the best face that you possibly can to others. But today we have social media where it's 24/7. People are constantly presenting just this fucking facade of perfection, just constantly. Perfect family, perfect kid, perfect dog, perfect house, perfectly curated, Christmas presents, Halloween. Everything is so perfect. No mistakes, no issues. Everything is pristine, and it's fake, 100%. But this is what we as a society, me, my wife, not my kids yet because they're too young, but young people, they're presented with just this constantly curated, perfect image. And that's what they think is right. That's what they think is good. And if you make a mistake or if you have imperfections, it's like, well, how can I compete with all these other people? Why is their fucking life so perfect? And my life is shit. Why are things going wrong for me? Woe is me. It must be the world's fault. Must be other people's fault. Now, I'm lucky enough that when I look in on social media, I've always had this real jaded view of people, and it translates into social media as well. If I ever met someone who was just too perfect, like too nice, straight teeth, funny, smart, all of those things, I'd be like, man, there's something really fucked up with that person. They are probably a serial killer. And that's how I view it in Instagram too, is like, or any of the social medias, is that if someone is presenting just this image of perfection, I'm like, man, their life must be real fucked up in other ways, or something must be really messed up with them, because no one is that perfect. Is that a healthy way to think about it? No clue. But that's the way that I think. And it's kind of helped keep me away from like trying to quote unquote, keep up with the Joneses, keep up with the Instagrammers. Anyways, these images of perfection, and it's almost like the journey. Let me think how I want to say this. When you're looking at social media and you're keeping up with all of these things on Instagram or TikTok, and you're seeing these perfect families, this perfect life, someone making $1 bajillion on, I don't know, the stock market, whatever it is that you're seeing in this altered reality, you're focusing on end goals. All you're seeing are these end goals, these little snippets in time that people are projecting out there as the endpoint of whatever it is that they're working towards. And what you're really missing out is the journey to get there. And there's a reason why these people are probably cutting out the journey aspect. It's because the journey is ugly. And in all reality, there probably is no journey. If what they're projecting is false and they're not actually in this perfect little, bubble, they haven't gone through the journey to get there. They're just putting a smokescreen in front of your eyes for likes, for clicks, for dopamine hits, all of the things that we've kind of talked about before, just this superficial reality, quote unquote reality, that is social media. And I'm not looking down on other people that get in, fall into this social media craze or start scrolling through and mindlessly swiping. Dude, it happens to me. Happens to the best of us. And like I said before, I'm obviously the best, manly, good looking, all these things, these things. I've fallen into it where I've just looked down, started scrolling. It's stupid shit. I'll even think in my mind, like, this is fucking stupid. This is not real. But I'll just keep on scrolling. I'll look up and 20 minutes pass, 15, 20, 30 minutes pass, and half of my day is gone. I get sucked up into this fake reality, this perfect, curated bullshit of social media. So I get it. It's easy to do. It's easy to look at these things, see this perfect life, see these perfect pictures, see these perfect videos, and think, why isn't my life this perfect? Why am I constantly making mistakes? And then to almost like wallow in those things and to feel bad about yourself and try to focus more on the goals. It's like, well, I need this or I need that. I need to get to this place that this social media influencer is at in order to be happy like they are. And that's a really dangerous spot to be in because, like I said, it's fake. You're chasing the wrong things. And by doing that, you're really taking failure and mistakes and you're cutting them out. They're these bad things that you don't want to have happen. And when they do, you wallow in them or you just try to skip over them. But they're learning tools. Mistakes and failure are what push progress forward, right? You have to make mistakes. You have to fail in order to truly learn certain things. And that doesn't mean that failure is like in and of itself a good thing. It's more so your reaction to failure, how you react to it, how you learn from it, that really determines whether or not it's a good or a bad thing. And even long before social media came around, 2006, I can remember that's when Facebook came out because I came out right when I was going to college. Even before that, me and my boy Tom, MySpace, the advent of social media, right? Before all of this, America has always been a winner attitude, culture, society. Americans win. That's what we do. We won World War II. We win at the Olympics. We are winners. That's what America does. Barbecue, beer, winning. But that's not necessarily a good thing to always be focused on winning. If you're only focused on winning, you're only focused on the end goal. You're not focused on the journey. You're not focused on the game. You're not focused on all of these other things that go into life. Like winning, when people say winning is everything, I get to a certain extent what they're saying is that if you're going to play the game, you should try to win. But winning is not everything. And if winning is everything, that's a shallow existence. At least in my humble opinion, my super handsome, masculine, jacked and tan opinion. And I'm not sure if all of you out there are listening are from the United States. If you are, then this is you. You grew up in this culture. If you're from Europe or some other part of the world, then you're probably used to losing. So this doesn't, apply to you as much. I'm just kidding to all of my international listeners, all none of you. So we're getting hit from all angles here. And we've got social media that projects this perfect, curated falsehood that makes you feel bad about making mistakes or failing or not even that, right? Just not even hitting this perfection. You're so set up for failure because if you don't hit this perfect standard, then you're failing. So everything is basically failure. It's terrible. And then you've also got the country that you grew up in, the United States, where it's a win-first culture. We're winners. You need to win. Everything is focused on winning, not failing, not making mistakes. So we just have been hit with all of this pressure and all of this expectation throughout all of our lives. If you're a millennial, you've had social media for a good chunk of time now. Any of you Gen Zers out there, I feel bad for you because you have an immense amount of pressure that's just on top of your shoulders inherently by having social media, by being an American. And something came up for me recently as I've been expanding out this podcast, right? This global sensation with the host that's just essentially a Greek god, if I were to, describe him in one quick phrase. But as I've been expanding out, I've jumped into the world of Reddit, different places where I can try to grow the podcast and interact with different people and potentially get more, not only more listeners, but also just feedback on the podcast and how I'm doing. But I had a response to a couple of them, a couple of questions that have been asked. I had responses to them, and Reddit is definitely a different place. The subreddits that I'm in are a little bit more encouraging, softer, not as rough around the edges. And so I've had to kind of tone down some of the things that I say. Ultimately, like the core message is there, but maybe a couple less fuck words in there. Anyways, I answered this question and gave a pretty good response, got a lot of likes, a lot of interaction on it. People were saying this was great. They really appreciated it. But I did have one person who responded back and said, "Oh, tell us more about how you actually achieve this parental nirvana," in a real cocksucker type of way. I couldn't hear the tone, but I read it and, there was just something about it that made me want to just give him one of these, a knuckle sandwich right to the face. Don't even know it was a guy. This is all anonymous Reddit. But after I got over the initial anger and gut reaction defensiveness of like, fuck you, I'm not perfect. I'm not trying to be perfect. I was able to take a step back, look at my response and say like, hey, yeah, if I was just reading this, there could be potential for me to read this and think if I'm in a tough space, I'm struggling with a lot of these things. And then some asshole, the Unhinged Father podcast comes in and tells me, magically in 3 sentences, how to fix the world. I'd be like, dude, fuck this guy. And that's what it was. I was responded back to and just said, hey, this answer is obviously very abbreviated. I have by no means reached parental nirvana. There's no such thing as parenting utopia. I struggle with this shit every day. I'm just telling you some of the things that have helped me to become the best father that I could possibly be. And my answer, I even acknowledge, my answer is obviously idealized, like many of the things on the internet, because I'm not trying to present like a bad front. And there, I fell into that trap of presenting in this short amount of time, just the image of like perfection, or like I've got all my shit together. And it took me a second to step back, look at it, and realize that it could be seen that way. And I'm not a perfect parent. I'm not perfect at anything. As I've acknowledged many times, besides this mustache that might be perfect, I'm not any of those things. I've got a shit ton of problems. I've got problems fucking this high, just like everyone else out there. But that's where I think some of the things differ between, my response and other people's response. And that's kind of part of the core of why I wanted to get into this, is that yes, failure could be a good thing. It can be a learning experience. It can push you to become a better person, but you don't want to let failure define you. You don't want to sit there and wallow in it. You don't want to live in failure, and you shouldn't be striving for failure. Failure, like I said, is a tool. It teaches us what we need to learn in order to not fail the next time, or to be graceful in failure the next time, or whatever it is that we need to learn in that moment in time. Ideally, what we want is to succeed in life, to quote unquote win life. Now, I don't know what the fuck that means. To everyone, it's different. To me, raising good kids, being able to grow up, have kids, have family, surrounded by family that loves me, that interacts with me, that we can get together on Christmas and eventually someday, long time from now, because I'm not that old now, assholes, but a long time from now, sitting down, having grandkids over, spending time with them, and actually having my kids and my grandkids want to spend time with me, with having my wife want to spend time with me, with just having this great family experience. I don't know what you want to call it, great family culture, and not a perfect one. Like, we're going to fucking fight, and I'm going to piss my wife off to no end. And I'm probably going to make fun of my kids and, yell at my grandkids when they're older and tell them to get off my lawn, all this stuff. But at the core, a great family culture, not letting perfection get in the way of good or great. That's the end goal for me. That's what I want. That's what I would consider winning life. Whatever you consider winning life, failure is not the end goal. I'm not sitting here telling you should strive to fail. What I'm saying is that you need to allow failure to happen, to acknowledge it, and then to use it to ultimately win at life. Because if you don't, you're going to get fucking caught in that failure, or you're going to get caught in this rat race, and you're never going to achieve that goal that you want. And I think that that's an important thing to do, as well as I just kind of spelled out to you what I think that winning life would be for me personally. Everyone needs to sit down and describe what winning means to them. What is success to you? Is it what society tells you? Is it what social media tells you? And if you fall into those things, is that really success? Is it possible? Are you capable of achieving that? You need to have realistic goals set in order to hit them. And all of this, we could go round and round. I'm sure I'm just sitting up here on my pedestal, spewing all of these things to people. At the end of the day, what I would really like for people to take out of this message or podcast, whatever the fuck you want to call it, is that success can be different things for different people. Don't let other people define what success is to you. Figure out what's important to you, define that success, and then set a goal to try and actually achieve that success. You need to make sure that it's realistic and that it could actually happen. If you sit here and you say that my goal in life is to live forever, I'm going to be like, well, tough shit. We all die. But if you're saying that success to you is having a great family, living well, or even just becoming financially independent, owning a house, you could have different goals, but define what success means to you, and maybe sometimes shift what success means to you. You need to be able to be flexible here. As you grow, your definition of success is probably going to change, and that's a good thing. If you were the same person you were when you were 12 years old, I'd say there's fucking something wrong with you. And the other message, besides defining what success is to you and coming up with goals for your life, would be acknowledge the failures and the mistakes that you make. They're going to happen. You're going to fuck up. I do it probably on an hourly basis. My wife, again, she could describe to you in detail all of the times that I fucked up. But those can't define you, and you shouldn't be afraid to make the mistakes. If you're afraid to make the mistakes, you're never going to truly find success, because you're going to play it safe, or you're going to stay within this hamster wheel of social media, American cultural and societal pressures, all of the other things that go into it that really put you on that never-ending cycle of trying to achieve perfection. And that's the thing about perfection, is that it's almost like a drug. I'm not sure if anyone here is a South Park fan, but there was an episode called Guitar. It's like a Guitar Hero one. And one of the kids starts playing a game that's essentially supposed to simulate what like heroin is, where he's just chasing a dragon the entire game and he never catches the dragon. That's what perfection is. You can constantly chase it. You're never going to catch it. Now, that doesn't mean that you shouldn't have some sort of goal or ideal state that you'd like to get to, but make sure that it's realistic, that you actually can achieve it. And even if it's beyond that, that you give yourself some grace and some flexibility as you're striving to quote unquote win in life. So yeah, give yourself a little bit of a break. You're going to fuck up. You're going to make mistakes. You're never going to be perfect. You're never going to be that perfect Instagram model or that influencer family, 2 kids, dog, white picket fence. That shit is not real. It's all fake. Those people are fake. And if you're one of those perfect people, you're like, oh, this isn't fake. Like, okay, great. You have a perfect life. Not everyone can be like you. But yeah, that's kind of my roundabout thoughts on all of this stuff. As always, ADHD driven, caffeine fueled conversations in my own head, sitting here in my office, talking to a microphone by myself. Those are my thoughts. That's what I think. I hope that y'all enjoyed it. I'm going to call that an episode, though. If you like the content, if you agree with me, if you disagree with me, if you're like, what the fuck did this guy just say? Why did I just sit here and spend 20 minutes of time listening to this shit? Let me know. Let me know your thoughts. Let me know if you agree, disagree, if you've got questions. If you haven't already, give me a follow on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, wherever you get your podcasting needs met. If you enjoyed this content or you feel like there's someone that would enjoy this content or benefit from this content, I urge you, share it with them. Click the little button, share the website, share the Instagram. I appreciate you guys getting the word out there and trying to help this podcast grow to, beyond 3.5 people. Other than that, I hope that everyone has a fantastic rest of the week. And as always, be good, try hard, do your best.